Hey, you ready to drift off? Don't worry, I'm here to keep you company. Tonight, I'll tell you some real horror stories. No loud jumps, no sudden scares, just rain in the background, my voice and you. It's okay if you fall asleep while I'm talking. I'll still be here, letting every word slowly carry you away. Now, let's begin with our first story. I used to live in a building where the 12th floor was strange. It wasn't abandoned. People lived there. At least, that's what the landlord always said. But no one ever saw them. Every other floor in the building was normal. The faint hum of televisions leaking through the walls, neighbors laughing in the hallways, doors opening and closing. But the 12th floor, it was silent. I noticed it during my first week. I'd take the elevator up to my apartment on the 10th floor, and every time the doors passed the 12th, I'd glance at the display. The light for 12 never turned on. The elevator just skipped it. One night, after coming home late from work, I asked the security guard about it. He was an older man, the kind who didn't talk much. I thought maybe the 12th floor was under renovation, or maybe it was for storage. People live there, he said without looking at me. Best if you don't ask too many questions. He wouldn't say anything else. The first time I decided to see it for myself was a Thursday night, around midnight. The elevator didn't have a 12th floor button, so I had to take the stairs. The stairwell was narrow and dimly lit, the kind of place where every footstep sounds louder than it should. I remember thinking I'd feel stupid when I reached the landing and found nothing. But when I pushed open the heavy door to the 12th floor, it wasn't empty. The hallway stretched out like any other, but the lights, none of them were on. Not a single bulb. Yet somehow I could still see. It was as if the darkness wasn't complete. Like there was just enough of a faint, unnatural glow to outline the doors. And every single door had the same thing. No numbers. I stood there for a long time, just listening. No footsteps. No TVs. No sound at all. I should have turned back, but there was this low hum, almost like a vibration in my bones, pulling me farther down the hallway. I walked past door after door, my phone light barely cutting through the gloom. Halfway down the hall, I noticed one of the doors was slightly open. It was the only one. I didn't touch it. I couldn't, because even from where I stood, I could see something inside. Not clearly, but enough to know it wasn't right. A shape, human maybe, standing perfectly still in the darkness of that apartment, facing the doorway. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then, very slowly, the door began to close by itself. No sound, no creak, just a smooth, steady motion until it clicked shut. That was when I ran. I didn't look back, not once, not even when I heard faint footsteps following me in the stairwell. By the time I reached my floor, I slammed my apartment door shut and locked it, chest heaving, ears straining for any sound in the hallway outside. Nothing. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I convinced myself it was exhaustion, a trick of the light, the stress of work, maybe. But later, when I got in the elevator, I noticed something. The 12th floor button was there. It hadn't been there before, and the light above it was on. After what happened that night, I told myself I'd avoid the 12th floor forever. I deleted the memory like it was a bad dream until the knocking started. It was 3:12 a.m. the first time I heard it. A single, sharp knock. Then another. Then a third. I live alone. No one visits me at that hour. I froze in bed, listening. It wasn't coming from my door, though. It was coming from above me, the 12th floor. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between knocks. It wasn't random. 3 knocks, a pause, 3 more, always the same rhythm, like something mechanical or something patient. By morning, it stopped. I asked my neighbor, an old woman who's lived on the 10th floor for years, if she ever heard anything strange. She looked at me like I'd asked her a dangerous question. "Don't listen to it," she whispered. "If you listen too long, it knows you're there." I didn't know what she meant. That night, I couldn't sleep. I put in my earbuds, turned on some rain sounds, anything to drown out my thoughts. But at exactly 3:12 a.m., even with the rain in my ears, I heard it. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. And then a sound I'd never heard before. A voice. Not clear. Just a low murmur, like someone speaking through a wall. I pulled my earbuds out and held my breath. The voice didn't stop. It was slow, deliberate, almost like it was whispering a name. My name. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the knocking stopped. I stayed awake until sunrise. The next morning, when I left for work, I checked the elevator. The 12th floor button was still there. And this time, someone had pressed it. The light above it was glowing. The elevator doors opened, and the car was empty. I told myself I wouldn't go back up there, but after the third night of knocking, I couldn't take it anymore. This time, I didn't wait until morning. I stood in front of the elevator at 3:10 a.m., barefoot, holding my phone like it was a weapon. The building was silent. Even the hum of the vending machine in the lobby felt distant. I pressed the button for the 12th floor. The doors slid shut. The elevator began to rise. And when it passed the 11th floor, I felt it. This sudden pressure, like the air itself, grew heavier. The doors opened with a soft chime, and I stepped out. The hallway looked the same, dark, quiet, lined with unnumbered doors. But this time there was something new. At the far end of the corridor, a single door stood out. It was different from the others. Its surface wasn't wood, but something darker, like metal left out in the rain for too long. And carved into it, deep enough to catch the faint light, was a single number, 12-07. My hands were shaking. None of the doors here had numbers. Not before. And then I heard it. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. But this time, it wasn't coming from above me. It was coming from that door. I should have run. I should have left. But my feet carried me closer. With every step, the knocking grew louder, sharper, until I was standing in front of it. I raised my hand, and then it stopped. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen. The silence pressed down on me like a weight. Then, slowly, I heard the sound of the lock turning from the inside. I stumbled back. The door opened an inch, just enough for me to see darkness on the other side. So black it looked like it was swallowing the hallway light. And in that darkness, I saw an eye, wide, unblinking, staring right at me. I bolted for the elevator, heart slamming against my ribs. When I got inside and the doors closed, I didn't breathe until I was back on my floor. I didn't even look at my own door when I locked it behind me. That night, I sat on the floor, trembling, staring at my ceiling until dawn. And at 3:12 a.m., the knocking started again. But this time, it wasn't coming from above me. It was coming from my door. I didn't open it. At 3:12 a.m., I sat there on my living room floor, my back pressed against the wall, knees drawn tight to my chest. I'd been expecting it, but that didn't make it easier. The knocking started the same way it always did. 3 measured strikes, a pause, then 3 more. But this time, it wasn't just a sound. There was breathing. It was faint at first, almost lost beneath the quiet hum of my refrigerator. But the longer I listened, the clearer it became, slow, steady breaths, dragging through the crack at the bottom of the door like whoever was outside was leaning close enough to smell the air in my apartment. I stared at the handle. It didn't move. Not yet. Minutes stretched thin. The knocking stopped, but the breathing didn't. It stayed there, patient, like whoever or whatever stood outside had no reason to rush. Then I saw it. A shadow. Thin at first, like my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, it was there, stretching across the gap under my door. The outline of 2 feet. Motionless. I don't remember how long I watched it. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe an hour. My phone was in my hand, but I couldn't call anyone. Who would I even call? What would I say? Eventually, the breathing faded. The shadow shifted and disappeared. By the time sunlight bled through the blinds, I almost convinced myself I imagined it all. Almost. I opened my door. The hallway was empty. Just a faint smell of dust and cheap cleaning products. I stared at the floor where the shadow had been. There was nothing there. But that night it came back. And this time it didn't knock first. I woke up to the sound of the handle turning. It didn't rattle violently. It didn't pound. It simply twisted halfway, stopped, and then slowly turned the other direction. Metal on metal, deliberate, patient. I sat up in bed, frozen. I didn't even breathe. Then the whisper came. Open it. It was so clear, I almost believed it came from inside the apartment. A low, rasping voice, like someone who hadn't used their throat in years. I didn't move. The whisper came again, dragging out every word this time, like it was savoring them. Open the door. My mouth was dry. I pressed both hands over my ears, whispering over and over to myself, "This isn't real. This isn't real." But it didn't stop. The voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. It was too close. When I finally dared to look, I saw the handle. It was pointing straight down. I stayed there, clutching the blanket around me, eyes locked on the door, until the first gray hint of dawn leaked into my apartment. Only then did the handle slowly return to its normal position. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. By morning, I called the landlord. My voice was shaking, but I told him everything. The knocking, the breathing, the shadow, the whispering. He was silent for a long time. Then, in a tone so flat it didn't sound human, he said, "There's no 12-07 in this building." "I saw it," I said. "I've been there." "No," he replied. "You didn't." And then he hung up. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone, heart pounding, the quiet hum of my apartment pressing in around me like a suffocating blanket. I didn't want to believe him, but a part of me already knew the truth. That night, I didn't bother pretending I'd sleep. I left every light on. I kept the TV running for background noise. I sat in the corner of my couch with my knees pulled to my chest and waited. And right on time, at 3:12 a.m., the knocking started. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. But this time, it wasn't just the door. It was the walls, the ceiling, the floor, like it was everywhere at once. And then, from the other side of the door, in that same rasping voice, "Open it." I told myself I wouldn't go back up there. For days, I tried everything to block it out. Music, TV, even falling asleep on the couch with every single light on. None of it worked. Because every night, right at 3:12 a.m., the knocking would start again. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. And it wasn't just the knocking anymore. I could hear it moving. Some nights it came from above me, other nights from the walls or the ceiling, like it was crawling through the building. Sometimes it even sounded like it was coming from inside the vents, traveling through the pipes and wiring, surrounding me no matter what I did. Then came the whisper. At first, it was only my name, over and over, low and quiet, like someone standing just outside my door, leaning close enough that their lips were almost touching the wood. But last night it said something else. Come back. 2 words. I don't know why, but hearing those words broke something in me. I couldn't keep pretending it wasn't real. I couldn't keep sitting there, paralyzed in my apartment, waiting for the next knock. So tonight I decided I was going back to the 12th floor. When the elevator doors slid open, the building was dead silent. No hum of the vending machines. No distant footsteps from other tenants. Just silence, heavy and unnatural, like the entire place was holding its breath. I pressed the button for 12. The elevator groaned as it rose. I counted every floor, my hands trembling, sweat soaking my shirt even though the air was cold. When the doors opened, I almost turned back. Almost. The hallway wasn't the same. It had stretched somehow, longer, darker, emptier than I remembered. The lights overhead flickered weakly, and the air was so heavy it felt like it was pressing down on my shoulders. I stepped out anyway. The elevator doors closed behind me with a soft chime that sounded too loud in the suffocating quiet. And there it was, 12-07, the only numbered door. It looked worse than before. The metal was darker, streaked with something that looked almost like rust or dry blood. I couldn't tell. My footsteps echoed as I walked closer, each one swallowed quickly by the silence. Then, from somewhere far down the hallway, I heard it. 3 knocks. I froze. It wasn't from 12-07. It was from behind me. Slowly, I turned my head. A door at the far end of the hall, one that hadn't been there before, was open just an inch, and in that narrow crack, I saw it. An eye, wide, pale, unblinking. It didn't move. It didn't blink. It only watched me. I bolted. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just ran straight to 12-07 and grabbed the handle. I didn't care what was inside, only that it wasn't out there with that eye. The door opened, but it didn't open into an apartment. It opened into a stairwell. Narrow, impossible. The walls pressing close on both sides, lined with damp, crumbling concrete, spiraling down into blackness. The air coming from below was so cold it burned against my skin. Behind me, the hallway was silent again. The door with the eye was shut. I should have turned back. I didn't. I stepped inside. The door closed behind me without a sound. For a long time, I just stood there on the first step, staring down at the staircase that seemed to go on forever. My phone had no signal. The air smelled of wet stone and something faintly metallic, almost like blood. And then, far below, I heard them. Whispers. Not one voice. Not 2. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. They echoed up the stairwell, overlapping, impossible to understand but constant, like a crowd murmuring just out of reach. I kept walking. I don't know how long I descended. My legs ached. My breath came in sharp bursts. The stairs never ended. Then I saw it. A door. Not like 12-07. This one was worse. Ancient. Rusted so badly I couldn't believe it would even open. And yet, something knocked from the other side. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. And then a voice, clearer than it had ever been, whispering from the other side. So close it felt like it was inside my ear. Welcome back. I didn't touch it. I swear I didn't. That door would open on its own. At first, it was only a sound, an old, groaning scrape of rusted hinges, faint but sharp in silence. I stood there frozen on the cold stone step, my hand gripping the wall so tightly my fingers hurt. The sound stretched, drawn out like something ancient forcing its way into present. And then it moved, just an inch, enough to let out a draft of air, so cold it cut through me like a blade. My breath fogged in front of my face, curling upward in thin, pale wisps. I stared at the gap, at the blackness that lived behind it, and for a moment I thought I saw movement, a flicker, like someone stepping out of sight. Deeper into the dark, the whispers grew louder. They no longer blended together. I could almost pick them apart now. Some were murmuring, low and desperate, like pleading. Others laughed in short, sharp bursts, hollow and wrong, like they had forgotten what laughter was supposed to sound like. I should have left. I should have turned around, climbed the endless stairs, and never looked back. But the knocking came again. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. This time, the sound wasn't from behind the door. It was behind me. I spun around. The staircase I had come from was gone. No steps. No way back. Only the door. The walls were too close now. My chest tightened. The air was heavy, stale, and freezing, and I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. My phone was useless. It screened black, refusing to turn on no matter how many times I pressed it. And then the door opened wider. 2 inches. The whispers sharpened. I could hear one voice now, clearer than the rest. A rasping tone that cut through the others like glass. You've been here before. I stumbled backward, but there was nowhere to go. My back hit the wall, damp and cold. The door opened again, slower this time, every creak of metal groaning like it hadn't been moved in centuries. For inches, enough for me to see inside. And what I saw wasn't possible. It wasn't a room. It wasn't a hallway. It was the street. Cobblestones slick with rain. Buildings without windows. A sky that hung too low, black and starless, pressing down as if it wanted to crush the world beneath it. And in the distance, shapes moved, dozens of them, walking in slow, jerking motions, their heads bent at unnatural angles, their arms hanging loosely at their sides like broken puppets. One of them stopped. It turned toward the door. Its face, if you could call it that, was stretched smooth, as if someone had pulled skin over where features should have been. No eyes, no mouth, just a pale, blank surface. And then it tilted its head, not at the door, at me. The whispers fell silent. In that awful quiet, I heard the sound of bare feet on wet stone. 1 step, another, closer. I should have screamed. I should have slammed the door, but my body wouldn't move. I was rooted to the spot as the thing reached the threshold, its faceless head pressing against the gap, pushing. The door stopped. It didn't open further. Instead, the voice came again. Let it in. The air left my lungs. I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath until then. My hand moved before I knew it. My fingers brushed the rusted edge of the door, and for a moment I thought, no. I pulled away. I pressed myself flat against the wall, trembling. The thing on the other side didn't move anymore. It only stood there, its blank head filling the gap, so close I could see faint cracks in the skin where there should have been a mouth. And then, as if it grew bored of me, it stepped back. The door began to close. Not fast, not slow, just steady, final, until it sealed shut with a sound that echoed like a tune being sealed. The whispers died, and I was alone again. But I wasn't relieved, because carved into the metal of the door, in letters that hadn't been there before, were 2 words. Next time. I didn't run. I thought I would. When the door sealed itself shut, I expected panic to take over, to scream, to pound on the walls until my fists split open. But instead, I simply stood there, frozen, staring at the words that had carved themselves into the rusted metal. Next time. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wall for support. I turned, expecting to see the staircase again, the one that had vanished when I first came down here. And it was there now, just as it had been before. No explanation, no reason. I climbed without thinking, step after step, breathless, my throat dry, every sound muffled by that crushing silence. It felt endless, but eventually I was back in the hallway. The 12th floor looked almost normal again. The numbered door was there, 12-07, rusted and still. No sign of the impossible stairwell. No sign of the pale, faceless thing behind the door. Just quiet. I stumbled into the elevator, nearly falling against the wall. When the door slid shut, I thought I was safe. I was wrong. The first night back in my apartment, I heard it. Not the knocking, the whispering. Faint. At first, so faint, I thought it was the sound of the pipes or the hum of the building. But then it grew clearer, sharp enough to form words I couldn't mistake. You shouldn't have left. I pressed my palms against my ears, but it didn't help. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was inside, deep in the walls, in the floor, in the hollow of the vents and the old wiring. And then I heard something else. Footsteps. Not above me, not below. Inside my apartment. Slow, dragging. Bare feet against linoleum. I didn't move. I didn't dare look. I lay in bed with the covers pulled to my chin, my breath held tight in my chest. And then it stopped. For hours, I waited in silence. Eventually, exhaustion took me, and I fell into a shallow, restless sleep. When I woke up, the whisper was louder. Now, it wasn't only at night. It was in the mornings when I boiled water for coffee. It was in the afternoons when I stared blankly at my computer screen, unable to work. It was there in the shower, just behind a curtain, murmuring in a voice I almost recognized. You don't belong here anymore. I thought about moving out. I even packed a bag. But when I opened the door to leave, I froze. There, at the end of the hallway outside my apartment, was a door. It wasn't there before. No number. No handle. Just a door. And from the other side, faint but unmistakable, 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. I slammed my door shut and locked it. I didn't step outside again. That night, I heard the laughter. Not the whispers. Not the knocking. Laughter. Low, broken, hollow. It came from the vents, from the floorboards, from the shadows collecting in the corners of my ceiling. I didn't sleep. I just sat there in the dark, clutching my phone. Though it hadn't worked since the night, I went back to the 12th floor. When dawn came, I dared to look at my front door. There was something scratched into the wood. 2 words. Next time. The same as before. But this time, there was another line carved beneath it, rough and jagged as if written by a shaking hand. We're closer. I don't remember falling asleep. One moment. I was staring at the scratches on my front door. Those words burned into the wood. And the next, I was waking up on the couch, my neck stiff, my mouth dry. The apartment was silent. Too silent. Usually, I could hear the faint hum of the building, the distant elevator, the muffled chatter of neighbors, the occasional creak of pipes. But now there was nothing. No sound. No movement. Just stillness. And then I realized it. The air smelled different. Not like my apartment. It smelled damp. Old. Like wet stone and rust. The same smell from the 12th floor. I sat up slowly. My chest was tight. My breath shallow. The curtains over my window didn't move. Not even with the faintest draft. It was like the entire room was sealed in that same dead air I had felt behind the door at 12-07. I stood, legs trembling. That's when I saw it. The corner of my living room. A door. Not my front door. Not my bedroom door. Another door. Its surface was metal dark, scarred with scratches I didn't recognize. It wasn't there yesterday. It shouldn't be there at all. And from the other side, 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. My stomach twisted. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at it, hoping if I stayed still long enough, it would disappear, but it didn't. Instead, the whispers started again. At first, they came from the door, then the walls, then the floor beneath my feet, until it felt like the entire apartment was murmuring. Hundreds of voices, layered and low, all saying the same thing. Let us in. I backed away, but the door didn't move. It didn't open. Not yet. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the whispers didn't stop. They were inside me now, vibrating in my bones, threading through my thoughts until I couldn't tell if I was hearing them or thinking them. And then I saw it, the number carved into the door, 12-07. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, hours. The clock on my wall wasn't moving anymore. Finally, I did the only thing I could. I grabbed my phone. Not call anyone. I knew it wouldn't work. But for the flashlight, my thumb hovered over the screen. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to confirm it. But I turned it on anyway, and the light revealed something else. Hands, pressing from the other side of the metal. Dozens of them, pale and thin, their fingers clawing against the steel, bending it inward like it was soft clay. The door didn't open, but it didn't need to. It was breathing. I stumbled back, slamming into my coffee table, nearly knocking it over. My phone slipped from my grip and hit the floor, the light spinning wildly across the walls. For a split second, it caught something in the corner, a shadow. Not from me. It stood tall, unmoving, stretched across the ceiling, as if it were hanging upside down. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, and then it whispered, louder than the rest, "You brought her home." The light from my phone died. The room was dark, and the knocking started again. This time, it wasn't just from the door. It came from the walls, from the ceiling, from every surface around me. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. The sound surrounded me, steady and patient, like it could do this forever. I don't remember lying down. I don't remember closing my eyes. But at some point, I was back on the couch, my head resting against the armrest, the sound of the knocking fading into something like rhythm. And then I realized it wasn't stopping. It wouldn't stop, not until I opened the door. I stopped fighting on the 3rd night. The knocking didn't scare me anymore. It had become part of the air, like the hum of a refrigerator or the faint creak of old wood settling in. The whispers, too, they no longer startled me. They just were a constant, steady presence. When I closed my eyes, I heard them. When I opened my eyes, I saw the door. Always there. 12-07. I didn't remember how it got into my living room. I didn't even care anymore. It wasn't important. What mattered was the stillness it brought with it. My world had shrunk down to this one room, this one door, and the voices that hummed like a distant lullaby through my walls. I sat on the couch, staring at it for hours. Sometimes I thought I saw the metal pulse, like it was breathing. Other times, I could almost make out faces pressing against the surface, pale, stretched, half-formed, like they were just beneath a thin sheet. They never looked angry. They never looked sad. They just waited. The knocking came again. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. I didn't flinch this time. I almost welcomed it. I rose slowly, the floor cold under my bare feet. The air in the room felt heavier than before, but not suffocating. More like the weight of a thick blanket draped over me. Familiar, comforting, The whispers grew louder as I approached. They weren't words anymore, not exactly. Just a sound, low and steady, vibrating through my chest, making it hard to tell where my body ended and the room began. I stopped an arm's length from the door. "Are you ready?" The voice came clear, like it was standing just behind me. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. "Yes," I whispered. My hand hovered above the surface. The metal was colder than I remembered, and for a second I hesitated. But then the door shuddered just slightly, like it was leaning closer to meet me. And I touched it. Everything went silent. No whispers. No knocking. Nothing. Then the door opened. Not fast. Not slow. Just enough. The gap was small at first, but what I saw through it, it wasn't darkness. It wasn't that impossible street with the faceless figures or the rain-slick cobblestones I had seen before. It was quiet, an endless stretch of stillness, pale and soft, like the world between a breath in and a breath out. No walls, no ceiling, just quiet. And in that quiet, I felt it. Relief. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, the tension in my chest eased. My hands stopped shaking. My breath no longer caught in my throat. The door opened wider. I didn't step forward. I didn't need to, because something reached out. A hand, pale, thin, impossibly long, emerged from a gap. It didn't grab me. It didn't pull. It simply rested against my shoulder, cold and steady, like it was guiding me. And in that moment, I understood. This wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. I closed my eyes. I don't know if I moved first or if the door pulled me in, but the next thing I knew, I was weightless. No floor beneath my feet, no ceiling above me, only the quiet and the soft hum of voices all around me, not whispers anymore, but a single sound, low, steady, endless. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because for the first time since I found 12-07, I wasn't afraid anymore. There was no falling, no sense of movement, no rush of air or lurch in my stomach. It was like stepping into a dream and forgetting where the dream began. One moment, I was in my apartment. The next, I was here, and here was vast. At first, I thought it was water. The air was thick, cool, and heavy, like the way it feels before a storm at sea. I couldn't see a floor, but I wasn't sinking either. I floated weightless, in a space that seemed endless, surrounded by a soft blue haze that stretched out in every direction. It was silent, not the empty kind of silence, but a silence that felt alive. Somewhere in that stillness, I heard it, the low hum. Not whispers anymore, not the knocking, just a single unbroken note, deep enough to vibrate through my chest. I turned, or at least, I think I turned. Movement felt strange here, slow and effortless, like gliding. Shapes began to appear in the haze. Figures. They stood far off at first, outlines barely visible. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All facing the same way, their heads slightly bowed, their bodies perfectly still, as if they were waiting for something. I should have been terrified, but I wasn't, because the longer I stayed, the calmer I felt. Every breath I took seemed to sink deeper into this place, like it was pulling me further away from everything else. My apartment, the 12th floor, my old life, none of it mattered here. Nothing did. I drifted closer to the figures. Their faces were pale and smooth, almost featureless, like blank porcelain. They didn't look at me, didn't move, but I could feel them. They weren't dead. They weren't alive either. They were simply here, existing. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. I didn't need to. The hum around me shifted, and suddenly I could feel their answer, not in words, just in the hollow space of my mind. Stay. The sound was warm and cold at the same time. It felt like lying under heavy blankets on a rainy night, but also like standing barefoot on ice. And somehow it made sense. I drifted further in. The figures parted silently, leaving a path. At the end of it, I saw a door. Another door, 12-07. But this one wasn't rusted. It was smooth, black, and polished, with no handle at all. And yet, I knew it was meant for me. As I reached for it, the hum rose, vibrating louder, almost soothing, like a deep lullaby. My fingertips brushed the surface. It was colder than anything I'd ever felt. So cold it almost burned. And then it opened. Light spilled out. Not bright light, but soft, gray, like dawn filtered through heavy fog. Beyond it was nothing. No floor, no sky, just an endless expanse. I didn't hesitate. I stepped through, and as I did, I felt the door close behind me, not with a sound, but with a weight, like it had locked out everything I used to be. The hum quieted, the silence returned, and in that silence, for the first time, I realized I wasn't standing on anything anymore. I was floating, drifting, sinking, and then I saw them, the faces. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them, just beneath me, suspended in the haze, their blank expressions turned upward, waiting, not threatening, not welcoming, just patient. I let myself sink. The deeper I went, the quieter it all became. The hum was gone. The knocking was gone. Even my thoughts began to fade. And in that quiet, I understood this was the 12th floor. Not a place in my building, not a floor I could walk to, but something vast, something that had been waiting all along. And now it had me. I didn't fight it. I didn't want to, because in that silence, sinking deeper and deeper, I realized something terrifying. For the first time in my life, I was home. Time doesn't exist here, not the way it used to. I don't remember how many nights have passed since I stepped through that final door. Maybe there have been days, maybe weeks. But in this place, there's no sunrise, no sunset, only the same soft, gray haze stretching endlessly in every direction. It isn't empty exactly, but it's quiet in a way that makes you forget the world ever had anything else. I've stopped thinking about my apartment. The couch, the clock, even the smell of my own room. It all feels like it belonged to someone else. That person was restless. That person was loud inside their own head. Here, everything is quiet, and I am quiet with it. The others drift past me sometimes. They don't walk. They simply move, gliding without effort, pale figures with faces smoothed down to almost nothing. They never look at me, but I feel them. They hum, not with their mouths, but with whatever it is we are now, and the sound vibrates to me like a low tide rolling in and out. It isn't frightening anymore. It's steady, a rhythm that asks nothing of me except to remain here and let go of everything else. I think I've started to understand the rules. There is no hunger, no thirst, no weight to carry in my chest. When I drift close to the others, they part silently, and sometimes, in the far distance, I see doors, dozens of them, hanging in the air like forgotten memories. None of us open them. We simply pass by, as if we're waiting for something we no longer need to name. Sometimes I wonder if the doors lead back to the world of rain on windows and the hum of old appliances, back to the steady tick of clocks that used to push me forward. But I never reach for them. The thought comes and goes, but the quiet is stronger. It pulls me down deeper, and I sink willingly. Every so often, I remember the knocking, that steady pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. It hasn't followed me here, But I think about it the way you might think of an old song you used to know by heart. Maybe that's what brought me here. Maybe it was calling me, the same way it calls anyone who listens long enough. When I drift too far from where I began, I find the sea. It isn't made of water. It's a shifting expanse of pale fog that moves like a tide, and within it are shapes, faces, hands, fragments of people who are no longer whole, but not gone either. They rise and fall slowly, endlessly, like the tide has claimed them and keeps them cradled. I don't feel fear when I see them, only recognition. Sometimes I think I might become one of them. Maybe I already am. My hands feel lighter than they used to, and when I look down, I don't see the details I once knew. My skin isn't exactly skin anymore. My edges are soft, like the rest of this place. It doesn't hurt. Nothing here hurts. It just fades. I've stopped counting the moments. I've stopped waiting for an end. And that's the strangest part. There's no dread in that thought. If anything, there's relief. Out there, in the world I left behind, everything was sharp. Sharp sounds, sharp lights, sharp thoughts. Here, nothing cuts. It all smooths over, like stones left under water for 1,000 years, until they're nothing but perfect, polished silence. The hum grows louder now. It's not alarming, it's comforting, like being wrapped in a sound you can rest against. I think it's the others, or maybe it's the 12th floor itself, breathing in and out around us. I don't resist it. I don't resist anything anymore, because here I am not haunted. I am not lost. I am home. And in this home, there is no need to wake up. I no longer remember what my own voice sounds like. At first, I try to hold on to it. The way my words used to echo in the quiet of my apartment, the sound of my breath when I was alone. But here, in this endless hush, even memory feels heavy, like it's sinking with me, layer by layer, until nothing sharp remains. I don't fight it. I've come to understand that this is what the 12th floor does. It doesn't take. It doesn't drag you down screaming. It simply waits until you stop clinging to yourself, until the edges blur, and you realize you no longer need to be what you were. The sea of fog is deeper now. I can't see the top anymore. I don't know if there is one. Above me, the faint outlines of doors float like distant stars, but they are far away, dim, and I have no desire to reach them. Instead, I drift downward, past the pale figures who hum without mouths and gaze without eyes. They don't move aside from me anymore because I no longer pass through them. I move with them, as if I become another part of this tide. I wonder if anyone has ever come back from here. Maybe some have. Maybe that's what it feels like when you wake up from a nightmare and can't remember why you were afraid. But I don't think I will. The thought of returning feels as strange as trying to breathe air after living underwater for 1,000 years. The hum has changed. It used to sound like a single note, low and constant, but now it feels layered, almost like a song without words. I don't hear it with my ears anymore. I feel in whatever I become. It moves through me like a current, steady and deep, until there's no distinction between myself and the sound. I saw a reflection once. There was no mirror, no glass, just a moment when the fog thinned and the surface of something unseen rippled like water. I leaned closer and expected to see myself, my face, my eyes, but what stared back was soft and formless, pale as the mist itself, a shadow of a person who no longer needs to be defined. And for the first time, I didn't miss who I was. I let go. Now I spend my days, or whatever passes for days here, drifting in the quiet, following the faint movement of others as we sink deeper together. There are no words, no glances, but there's a kind of communion in it, a shared surrender that binds us all in silence. Sometimes I imagine I hear knocking again, distant and faint, but I don't turn toward it. That sound belongs to another world, one with walls and doors and clocks that measure out a life in seconds. I am not bound by seconds anymore. I am part of the hum now. And as I sink lower, I understand what this place really is. It's not a prison. It's not even a curse. It's a quiet sea for all the pieces of us that were too tired to keep moving. A place for the weight to finally stop pressing down. The last of me fades like breath on glass. And I am not afraid, because I am not alone. And because here, in the deep silence of the 12th floor, I have found the last shape of myself. Nothing and everything, drifting forever in the soft and endless hush. There is no I anymore, not the way there used to be. I can still remember the idea of myself, faintly, like a name whispered through a closed door, but it's only an echo now. The 12th floor has taken the sharp edges of that memory and worn them smooth, like stones in an endless tide. And I find that I don't mind at all. Down here, there are no walls, no ceilings, no horizon. Only the haze that rolls like a tide without wind or shore. It folds over itself in slow, endless waves, carrying the shapes of others who drift in perfect silence. I no longer wonder who they are. They are not strangers, not companions. They are simply part of the same deep hush that I have become. The hum is softer now, not gone, but no longer something I notice. It isn't outside of me anymore. It is me. It moves through whatever I am like breath, but not the kind that begins and ends. There's no start or finish here, only a steady, soundless rhythm that lulls everything into stillness. Once, I thought I saw something deeper, a faint glow far below, like light sinking through miles of water. I followed it not because I was curious, but because movement felt natural, as if I were being pulled by the tide itself. The glow never grew closer, but I didn't stop. I could have drifted for what felt like years, but time is meaningless here. There are no hours to lose, no days to count. Only the slow, quiet descent. I pass other shapes along the way. Some are clearer than others. Figures that look almost human, their arms loose at their sides, their heads tilted forward, suspended like they are listening to something I cannot hear. Others are only fragments, faces blurred into the fog, hands without bodies, outlines that dissolve if I look too long. They do not frighten me. They are simply part of the sea now, the way I am, and every so often I see doors. They hang in the mist like thoughts I used to have, half forgotten and irrelevant. They no longer call to me. Maybe they lead back, or maybe they lead somewhere else entirely. It doesn't matter. I keep drifting downward. There's peace in this. Not the kind I used to know. Not the fragile kind that broke the moment a clock ticked too loud or a knock came at the door. This peace is endless, heavy enough to press against every thought until there's nothing left but quiet. The glow is still there. It's not closer, not farther, just steady, like it has always been. I don't need to reach it. I only need to follow it, the way everything in this place follows it. Maybe it's the heart of the 12th floor. Maybe it's nothing at all. But it doesn't matter. In this place, there is no difference between questions and answers. I sink deeper. The hum deepens with me. So low now it feels like the world itself has exhaled and forgotten to breathe back in. I let go of everything else. And in that endless quiet, I understand. This is what it means to disappear. And it's beautiful. There is no above or below anymore. Only the slow, weightless sensation of moving through something that isn't quite air, isn't quite water, but something in between. The fog around me doesn't shift the way it used to. It has become constant, like a blanket that has been pulled over the world and tucked in so tightly that no sound from the outside could ever reach this place. I cannot tell how long I have been here, but that thought has lost its meaning. Time does not live here, and neither do clocks or days or the rising and setting of anything. There is only the drift. The hum is no longer separate from me. It's not a sound now. It is the state of everything. I feel like a deep pulse in the marrow of what I used to be. It moves without rhythm, without beginning or end, and it holds me as if I have always belonged to it. I do not think of the apartment anymore, or the couch, or the rain against the window that once felt endless in the night. That world has dissolved into something thin and unimportant, like the memory of a dream you know you had but cannot describe. Even my own name has slipped away, not because it was taken from me, but because I do not need it here. When I drift close to the others, I feel them the way one might feel a current in a deep and silent sea. They are not people, not exactly, but remnants, shapes that once carried their own edges, now soften until they are only impressions. They pass through me, or maybe I pass through them. It makes no difference anymore. There are no boundaries between us here, no separation, just a gentle blending of presence into something vast and formless. I realize now that I am becoming like them, or perhaps I already am. I think of the doors sometimes. They float far above, pale outlines against the infinite haze, each one waiting without urgency. Once, I might have wondered what would happen if I reached for one, whether I would wake in my old bed and hum of the world I left behind, with its clocks and noises and sharp edges. But the thought comes and fades like mist around my hands. I do not reach. I do not need to. There is no reason to go anywhere, because here I have already arrived. The glow is still there. I follow it without moving, or maybe I move without following. It's not light the way I used to know it. It doesn't shine or burn or cast shadows. It simply exists deep below everything else, a faint and steady presence in the haze. Sometimes it flickers, and in that flicker I see shapes, faces maybe, or fragments of places I once knew, a stairwell, a door, a rain-streaked window. They drift past and dissolve before I can hold them, but I don't feel lost when they go. I am too far from the world for loss to reach me anymore. Further down, the hum changes. It deepens into something so vast it no longer sounds like sound at all. It's like standing inside the breath of something ancient, something so immense that it has no need to be seen or named. I let it fill me, and in that moment, I understand why none of us leave. It isn't that we're trapped. It's that here, nothing demands to be escaped. The shapes around me thin out. Some fade entirely, becoming no more than faint outlines, as if they've gone beyond even this. I think I will follow them soon. I feel my edges unraveling. My hands no longer hands. My thoughts no longer contained in anything I could call a mind. I am not frightened. Fear is a sound that belongs to the world above, and I have not heard it in a very long time. I wonder if anyone is still knocking on the other side of that door. I imagine the sound. 3 sharp raps, a pause, then 3 more. I used to flinch when I heard it. Now I think it would sound almost distant, like rain falling in another city, on a night I no longer remember. The glow grows softer. Or maybe I am simply closer. It doesn't matter. I reach it not with hands, but with the part of myself that is left, the part that drifts and hums and waits. And when I touch it, or when it touches me, I feel nothing but quiet, not the absence of sound, but the quiet that comes after everything has been resolved, the quiet that doesn't ask for anything more. I keep drifting. I do not need to stop, because here, in this endless sea beneath all things, there is no difference between staying and going. There is only the drift. And in the drift, there is no hunger, no wait, no waking, only the slow, infinite hush of the 12th floor, holding me, carrying me until I am nothing at all. And in becoming nothing, I have finally become part of everything.